All right, hello everyone. So thank you again for your patience on that prolonged little intro, but it's really great to be here. It's truly an honor that anyone is even here to listen to what I have to say about, well, my testimony to Christ, how I got to be where I'm at today. It's honestly insane. My whole life has just kind of been a fever dream, especially coming back to the Catholic Church, because I really am just a witness to all of it. And I'm here to share that witness with you all. Because what I'm here to share is really my personal connection to Christ. That's what this is all about here. That's what this whole testimony is about. It's about Jesus. It's about Christ. And the connection between Gabriel Valencia and Jesus Christ. How he entered my life, and I pray that hearing this testimony, he's able to also enter your life in some way, in the way that is new, in the way that will grow you and impact you. So, without further ado, getting into it, what is that personal connection exactly? And I should start by saying that, growing up, I was a cradle Catholic, baptized, grew up in the faith, but I did not receive very good catechesis. It was very easy for me to kind of just be a cafeteria Catholic, just kind of choose what I liked, but I just grew more resentment towards it and went through a little dark period, but then I got over that around when I was 15, and I actually joined a youth group that I was actually actively a part of from 15 to 17, but I fell away from that too, and this is where all these things just started to come into play. So marijuana, weightlifting, Protestantism. How do these things correlate? It's because 5 years ago, I had a really bad addiction to marijuana, and I was going through the worst year of my life, and it was really bringing me down. And weightlifting is kind of what steered me back to God, steered me back into a better direction. And you would think that's where I would be like in the back Catholic church again. And I was for a second, but then I got steered into the Protestant church for a moment. And that also is a strange moment in time. But these are all things that correlate to my story, and I'm here to share with you about them. So, because it's very strange. A year ago, actually, I was about to be baptized again into this non-denominational church because I was like, yup, this is it. This is the truth. Catholicism is false. Infant baptism, nope. Do away with that. These statues, oh, that's pagan. But eventually came to realize that wasn't true. Being guided by the Spirit of truth. And so I'm going to get into that, which was the first part of all this: weed, marijuana, my addiction. How did that start? Well, at 13 is when I was first exposed to it. It wasn't a regular thing, but it left the door open. Because then at 17 is when I got my hands on a wax cartridge. And I started vaping it. And it was nice. It was like, okay, it's just once a week thing after I'm done with work, and that's fine. But then it became every other day. And then every other day became every day. And then every day became multiple times a day. So on and so forth. And with that, I started not being the most pleasant person to be around, because that was all I really wanted to do. It was really rare to catch me sober in my senior year of high school. And that's pretty sad to say, but it's the truth. I just couldn't go without it. I had to be on it. And with this, I was just very angry as well. My mental was not always in the best place. But then it just kind of spiraled out of control come 2020, entering the pandemic. Now, that was a year that affected everyone, no doubt. But how did it affect me? Well, I was just closed in my room, and I went crazy. I stopped being a part of the youth group that I mentioned I was a part of because I just wanted to stop feeling guilty. And so I just went all in. I was smoking, in my room just all the time. I had a very bad porn addiction, and I was just eating like an absolute glutton, like it was terrible. I had a job at McDonald's at that time, and I would get my free meal, and I would just eat an unholy amount of food coming back home. Let me tell you, it was like a quarter pounder, 20-piece nuggets with 2 cookies and a large mocha frappuccino, and then I get home, I devour all of that while I get high and just watch anime. And it was just awful. Because then I would also be up way late at night, like to 5, 6, 8 a.m. in the morning, just being an absolute degenerate. I was literally a troll in my cave, a little cretin. Just like, what are you doing, dude? And it's interesting to think that was me, but that was me. That was where I was at. And I was enjoying that. So come May of 2020, I say, I don't want to feel guilty at all anymore. It was very easy to drown out with all those things, but I'd still feel a sense of guilt. I figured, oh, that's because I'm still identifying as a Catholic. That's because I'm still identifying as a Christian. And so what do? That's when I just get everything in my room that pertains to Catholicism and I toss it out. I get it out. I want nothing to do with it. I renounce God. That's the crazy thing. I knew God was real. I knew He was in my life, but I didn't want Him in my life. And God, being the loving Father He is, respected that. But the crazy thing is, He never stopped working in my life. 3 years I spent in this so-called agnostic era, but He came down to my level to bring me back. And after that renunciation in 2020, I went through some pretty nasty betrayals, some terrible dramas went down with some high school friends of mine. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of all that, but the last one is the one that really broke me. That was between all the months in June to October, and in October, I was starting to kind of want to at least get into better habits. Smoking wasn't hitting the same anymore. Eating wasn't hitting the same. And then I had a really bad falling out with one of these friends I mentioned. And that led to him also putting a threat onto my household. And that scared the heck out of me. I remember seeing the text and I was just trembling. I was like, what do? I was trembling in fear, but I was also trembling in anger, like, wow, this has become my life. I've lost so many friends, and now this one too, and on top of that, he wants to hurt me and my family. And that's when I just said, I'm done. And I was able to stop smoking, but that was really thanks to the Lord, because He blessed me with an allergy to THC. You know, the component in weed that makes you high. I couldn't even have it anymore anyway. But that was a blessing, because now I was at least on track to bettering my health, but it wasn't exactly the healthiest way either. Because I was angry. I was absolutely angry. I just had nothing but rage at the amount I had gone through with all these people whom I trusted so deeply. And I just wanted vengeance. That's all I would think about. I wanted to be able to hurt these people. And I wanted to protect my family too. So that's when I just, in my room, I was locked in still, because it was still pandemic time. And I was training like an animal. I was just going crazy with it. I was allowing the rage to consume me. And I didn't have a whole lot in there, like 2 dumbbells. I just did a ton of push-ups. Honestly, like if you guys have ever seen the anime One Punch Man, if you know his workout, that was mine. It was just tons of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, a couple other things, and I do the elliptical. And funny enough, I actually did shave my head not too long after that, so I really was that guy. But the problem is, though, every single time you train with such intense hatred and rage and you don't have God to hold you back, you invite evil into your life. And that's exactly what happened. I was just incredibly angry, and I wanted to hurt, I wanted to do bad, and I said a lot of bad things too. I just wanted to fight, and I was pissed off. And this was not healthy, because also in that training, I hurt myself in ways that are irreparable, and it's just very stupid. I don't recommend it, which is also why in my training, take my word for it, don't push yourself too hard. I know what it's like to do that, and it wasn't worth it. But thing is though, thankfully I received a blessing after that happened, which was I got to know a very wonderful group of friends who, during the pandemic, I would like play some video games with, and they were in San Jose. So we would hang out a lot, and these were much better quality people. These are people whom I could connect with and just have fun with. I didn't have to worry about them doing a whole lot of bad. And it was a blessing because they were healing me. They were starting to heal the trauma that I had gone through in 2020. And I wasn't suffering the same anymore. I was starting to suffer less. And they literally healed my inner trauma, my inner child too. Because I mean, we would be going on these late night drives. We'd stop at playgrounds, we'd play tag, like at midnight. There was even this one time when, it was the first time I was ever out like really late. I was kind of scared because I was at their house playing Uno at like 11 a.m. I was supposed to be getting home after that. But then they were just like, hey, we out to the beach? And then everyone said, bet. An hour later, we're in Santa Cruz. I'm just like, how am I here? But I have a blast. And it's these things, it's these experiences that started to heal me and take away the rage that I was feeling. And then later on, fast forward a year, I received another blessing. Insane. God just kept sending me blessings, even though I was like, I want nothing to do with you. But I was on this path to self-improvement. I was on this path to bettering myself. I didn't want to remain the same person. And enter another person in my life. Now, insanely enough, this was actually someone whom I hadn't spoken to in years, who was part of the youth group that I was a part of when I was a wee lad. And he was an amazing influence on me. Absolutely amazing. He exposed me to these higher quality environments, the higher quality people, and challenged my thinking greatly. He started to also, he was a personal trainer too, so he was training me as well to not train as stupidly as I was before. And I stopped training with that same rage. I didn't train with hatred anymore, but more so out of love. Love for knowing that, yes, I do need to protect my family, I do need to be a strong man, but it doesn't have to be because I need to hurt others. It's to protect. And on top of that, he also exposed me to reading. I did not read for many years prior to that. And, this again being someone whom I looked up to, who, walked with confidence, who people saw as a leader. He says, hey bro, read this book. I'm just like, okay. But I'm still just like, what do I do with this? Because I haven't read in a long time. I'm like, okay, trying to improve myself. All these self-improvement gurus talk about reading, I'll give it a shot. And it's a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. Now, I highly recommend it if you haven't read it already. It's a very short read. It's like 100 pages, pretty small print. And this book changed my life. It's the first book I read getting out of that rut. And little did I know it was actually a Christian book. It was heavily Christ-centered. Talked a lot about how we should, retrain how we think. To think with more positivity, how we attract what we are. And so, I was just baffled. Because in another part of the book, it said, give the burden unto Christ. Now, again, me not knowing a whole lot about the Bible, about reading, and this way of thinking, I was baffled by that. It's clear to see now as a devout Christian that was a reference to Matthew 6, 25 to 34. The Sermon on the Mount, Christ is talking about letting go of anxiety. Don't worry. I treat the lilies in the valley. And aren't you not more valued than all of them? So trust in me. And that's a beautiful thing for me to have been exposed to, because again, I'd never been exposed to that. So I was really receptive to this book. And it softened me up to Christianity, because once I was hateful towards it, I didn't want anything to do with it. And now I was actually open to hearing what it was. Now, it would still take about a year for me to come back. And let's actually fast forward a year. because that's when I did come back to the church. I felt this very strong calling to God as I continued to improve myself. I'm just like, I need to go to church. And it was 2023 Ash Wednesday. So I go. And that was a beautiful moment for me because I'm just like, this is very logical religion. So I need to just be centered in it again. But I was still just kind of going whenever I wanted. I didn't really see the importance of these things. It was just like, okay, it's a nice ritual. And then it got even more intense though when I went to Barnes & Noble in around March of 2023. And I was there trying to read this book. It was called Think and Grow Rich. But I couldn't read it, I couldn't focus. I was just like, I was not into it. I couldn't breathe too well. So I stand up to fix that problem. And normally I'd go to like the manga section in Barnes & Nobles because that's what I like. I want to see what they got. But in my pacing around the store, I actually ended up in the Bible section. And this is where things took a turn. I was just very interested in seeing what the Bible had to say. And let me grab it, it's right over here. Because what I ended up grabbing is this Catholic Bible. Because it has familiarity, but I didn't know there was any difference between other Bibles. And seeing this Bible, I was just like, whoa, I open it, and I read the part of the book of Revelation. Now, why that interested me was because there was a ton of things going on at the time, like end-time prophecies, River Euphrates drying up. And so I'm like, okay, let's see what they got. And I'm just like, whoa, I need to get this. So I leave the store, I purchase it, and I get home, and I just spend 2 hours reading through the book of Revelation. And after I'm done reading it, I'm just mind blown. That was an amazing read. I only understood like 0.02% of it, because it's a very difficult read, but it was amazing. The part that stuck out to me the most was honestly when it talks about being lukewarm. I prefer you hot or cold, but not lukewarm. That was my biggest takeaway there. And I'm just like, okay, this is something I need to take more seriously. However, unfortunately, the next month, April of 2023, I messed up. I did something very unlike me and very stupid of me that I was just very ashamed of. And thankfully, everyone whom I hurt did forgive me. I did apologize. And they were like, it's okay. You're moving forward. You're a better man. But I did not forgive myself. And so a month goes on where I'm trying to just kind of get over it. I'm doing all these things I've always worked before. I'm going to the gym. I'm boxing a bit. And I'm going on these hikes, having these high-quality talks with high-quality friends. But nothing's working. I don't get why. And then come this one fateful night, May 23 of 2023, is when I'm in a garage. And in this garage, I'm working out. There's a heavy bag in the corner, so I'm going crazy on it. And I'm just trying to find some peace. But I'm still just broken. Nothing's working. I don't understand why. And after I finish my workout and I still feel the same, that's when I did something very strange. I didn't understand why I did it, but I had to do it. This was when I had actually just gotten on my knees. And I said, God, I know that I've been away from you for so long, and you have nothing to prove to me. I am a wretched sinner. I am truly deserving of hell. And I'm sorry, you don't have to take me back. But if you so choose to, forgive me for what I've done, and accept me, and take me back. Then Jesus, I give my life to you. And insanely enough, in that moment, The pain that I felt before, these tears of sorrow, became tears of joy. I was happy. I was laughing even. I didn't understand why. This weight that I felt on my spirit just uplifted. And I didn't get it, but after what I had just done, after what I had just went through, after I just invited the name of Jesus, Jesus himself into my life, it became very clear what happened. Jesus saved me from myself. And he took me back, despite me as I am, Gabriel Valencia, chieftain of all sinners. And I was extremely grateful, because this was to me beyond all logic. But we know that our God is not confined to the laws which he created. And so it was at this point that I realized Mass is not an option. I have to be more dedicated. I have to take my walk with Jesus more seriously. So I start getting more connected again with the church. I reach out to my pastor, and he anoints me as a lector. I get involved with a few other activities. I go on the spiritual retreat. I meet this really good friend there that I would end up losing touch with for about 6-ish months. But, he was cool. But then this is when things took a bit of a turn. Because then this is when I met a friend who, unbeknownst to me, I would begin dating. Why is this significant? This was a pastor's daughter. And she started to invite me to her church, to Bible study at that. Something I'd never been offered in the Catholic Church. Now she was starting to offer me, like, hey, you want to go to Bible study? And I'm just, again, after my sincere experience with the Lord, I had to know more. So it's like, okay, even though this guy's, like, whatever he believes in is a little bit different from Catholicism, he definitely has more biblical knowledge in my opinion. So why not go listen to what he has to say? Why not go learn from what he has to say? Couldn't hurt, right? And I do have to give some credit here, because it was here that the pastor had nurtured my habit to actually take my Bible seriously. This is something I admire about many Protestants, is that they actually take the Bible seriously. They read the Bible. They're very serious about it. And that's what was nurtured here. But thing is, being a part of that environment and actually getting along with the pastor pretty well, I started to become influenced by his erroneous interpretation of Scripture. And I started to let that influence what I thought was God. Because then there were things that were aligning with my truth. So I was like, yo, this must be it. And like I said, at this point is when I just renounced Catholicism. It's like late November 2023. And I say, okay, that's it. I just abruptly leave my old church that I had come back to. I abruptly leave. I'm like, all right, those 400 years of silence. That's why the Deuterocanon is out. That's why the 66-book canon of the Bible is the true way. Those extra 7 books, no, don't need them. Praying to saints, that's pagan. And Mary, she ain't all that. She just gave birth to the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, but that was it. Ain't doing nothing else. And with this, I have blissful ignorance for about a month and a half. I'm enjoying the vibe of the Protestant service. Because hey, it's a lot. Like I think it has its place, but definitely not in here. There shouldn't be bands up here just going crazy with drums, just going like, Christ is Lord. It's a rock concert. Like, come on, we're here to worship the Lord. But it was cool for that time. And then going into the new year, 2024, last year is when I say, yo, I need to be baptized again. Because this man led me to believe that my baptism as a baby didn't count, that it was invalid. So I made that declaration. They're very happy to hear that, of course. My family, not so much. But God bless my family. They loved me enough to respect me to make this decision. Even though they didn't agree with it. But they were like, you do what you're going to do. We can't stop you. And so I'm like, yup, we're getting ready. But then, something interesting happens, and this is totally by chance. I listened to this song. It's called Numb by Linkin Park. Some of you might know it. And this first time listening to it, it strikes a chord in me. It's these lyrics, I'll read some of them out. Tired of being what you want me to be, feeling so faithless, lost under the surface. And then a little bit after that, I've become so numb, I can't feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this, all I want to do is be more like me and less like you. I'd love to actually sing it, but then I'd end up doing karaoke, and that's not what you guys are here for. But anyhow, this had stirred something up in me that I just couldn't ignore. And not too long after this, I started to feel this strange sense of dread every time I would drive over to this church. And then when I'd see it, I just kind of I didn't understand why I was there. I didn't really understand where my faith was. Because I'm also reading the Bible and I'm starting to ask these different questions about this church. And I started to kind of realize that I was following my truth and not God's truth. And so I started reading the Bible even more to find my answers, and lo and behold, the Lord actually did give me some answers because I was able to ask these questions and see these things. Like, okay, if sola scriptura is enough, then why is there 40,000 plus denominations within Protestantism? And also, Matthew 16:18, the Lord promised that his church would not fall. So why is the claim that it did? Does that mean Christ lied? I don't know, I don't think so. And then Matthew 7:24-27, I saw that's actually an allusion to that. Because it talks about how a foolish man builds his house on sand and it crumbles, whereas a wise man builds his house on rock and it stays standing. Didn't he build his church on the rock and call it Peter? And I don't know, I think that church is still standing today, right? And realizing this, I was like, okay, I think I may have not made the best decision in my faith. And so this was when I just started to see things differently, but then there was one more heavy hitter that really turned things around, and that was the biblical evidence for purgatory. In Luke 12:41-48. Now that's a whole thing I'm not going to get into, but after seeing that, I saw this is an undeniable reality. And with that, I already realized I can't identify as a Catholic. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I can't identify as a Protestant, sorry. I didn't identify as a Catholic at the time. And that's because Protestants refute that. From the little I looked into with Orthodoxy, they refute that as well. And so then it became realizing I was wrong. But really, I still wrestled with that. Because I didn't want to be wrong. Who wants to be wrong? And this was when I was still just in this spiral. February. And I went to go to Ash Wednesday Mass because it was happening again. But I couldn't go because I ended up getting out late from work and I was sad. So I went to drive back home, but I ended up finding myself at my old church. Again, I don't know how I got there, but I drove there and I was just trying to find some peace. And funny enough, I found it. I sat outside there for an hour and finally found some peace from all this turmoil, all this confusion. And so I had a little bit of clarity. At that point is when I started to actually realize I know what I have to do. And then, what broke me though was that following Saturday, I decided to go to Mass. And I even had a really difficult conversation with my ex, saying, I need to go. And that was already like something that was putting things at jeopardy. Like, if you do, then we're gonna have to talk. I'm like, yeah, I know. So I go, and I'm terrified to go there. I reached out to the pastor beforehand. I said, hey, I'm gonna be going there. I just feel this need to go. And again, mind you, I had abruptly left this man and his services. And doing that alone was already like super nerve-wracking, but he was just like, let me know when you arrive. I show up kind of late. I see him giving the homily. I sit down at this corner of the church. It's like where it would be like right there. And I'm trying to hide because I'm ashamed to be there. Oh, and then what broke me is communion. I'm sitting down because I don't feel worthy to go up for communion, not even spiritual communion, cross my arms to receive a blessing. So I'm sitting there. But the choir is singing this beautiful song. It's called Save Your People. And the lyrics were really hitting me, especially because it was saying, Save your people, O Lord. We have been wandering far from your love. So save your people, O Lord. And that was me. I had wandered from God's love. Yes, I had a better prayer life being at this church, but I wandered from the wholeness of truth that's in that tabernacle right there. I strayed away from that willingly. And I broke down here and there. I let out an ugly cry in the pew. I was miserable. But it was like I needed that. And then I just stayed there, and then afterwards the pastor comes up to see me, and I'm still just like, hi, Father. He just gives me a hug. I was absolutely terrified, but he embraced me with such love, and he said, my friend, how are you doing? I missed you. What's been going on? And I can barely get a word out because I'm still recovering from my cry. And he's just like, it's great to see you again. I will continue to pray for you. Let me know if you need anything. And he just left. And that was great. The door was open, and it was after that, as I'm walking out, and I actually got the courage to grab a little bit of holy water and do the sign across my head. And that's when I realized I know what I have to do. I just don't know if I have the strength to do it. And not too long after that, though, I did. I realized I couldn't continue to go to my old Protestant church anymore. And with that, I lost my relationship. I lost the people that I had met there because they just couldn't stand by that decision. And the thing that frustrated me as well, because like at this point you think, okay, he came back to Catholicism, he came back to the church, woohoo, happy ending. But I still struggled with it. There were still things that I couldn't shake off. There were still things that I kind of believed. I still believed infant baptism was wrong. I still didn't think that highly of Mary and was scared to. And I struggled with the teaching of the Eucharist. Although it is there in John 6, Christ doubles down on it, it's still a hard pill to swallow. Like, seriously? Transubstantiation, it becomes the true body and blood of Christ? It's a wild thing. But again, I just knew I couldn't be at the Protestant church anymore, and I start going again to Mass. And I'm not receiving communion though, because it feels wrong. Feeling is the best way I can describe it. It was really like this nudge, because every time I go up, put my hands out to receive the communion, it was just this nudge that was like, not yet. It's like the mile into a cross. And afterwards I wondered, why did I do that? I wanted it, but I just couldn't. And amazingly, I actually got in touch again with a friend that I had not seen since that retreat that I mentioned earlier. And he invites me to Bible study. And I was ecstatic. I'm like, yo, I haven't been to a Bible study since I left my old church. Absolutely, let's do it. But I'm just still scared. I show up here at this church, and I'm sitting at the pew, right where you're sitting actually, Will. I find some peace, because again, I'm still just broken from everything that had been going on, but I actually managed to find peace that I just couldn't explain. I sit there for an hour, but it felt like 5 minutes, strangely enough. A taste of eternity, maybe? That's what my pastor had told me, but I believe it. Even so, I still couldn't accept it. But being in this Bible study is where I was able to find the answers to these questions that I struggled with. That's where I was actually able to start to accept the papacy. Eventually, the Eucharist too. Came to see that praying to saints wasn't wrong, that it is based in Scripture. And all I needed to do was make that leap. I couldn't quite yet, but then another fateful moment. May 18th, 2024. Now, this was a very special day because the pastor who I mentioned earlier, who had welcomed me back, it was his 40th year in the priesthood. So that Mass was celebrating that. It was also celebrating the ordination of a new deacon. And again, given this man had welcomed me back with such love, of course I was going to be there. Even though it was Saturday and not Sunday, but sure, let's do it. And so I go there. It's a lovely Mass. And it's here that before we go up to receive communion, something tells me it's time. And it's like a part of me didn't understand what that meant, but I knew what it meant. I'm walking up, and my arms are in the X, but I listened to that, and so I ended up putting my arms out, or my hands out, to actually receive communion once more. And I'm honestly really scared. I'm shaking, I'm trembling, and like, why do I feel this way? I don't know. Maybe it's because of all the pain that I've gone through before. Like, I'm finally taking Jesus back. Like, what? And I get it. I consume it. And for a few moments, I feel nothing. It is what it is. Like, I just get it. I'm starting to walk this way. But then I just start breaking down again. Oh, I mentioned I did an ugly cry before. I did it again. On my way back to my pew to get on my knees, I was rushing over so I could put my head down and no one would see me cry. And it was a very cathartic cry, because then it was all these emotions that were pent up, that were just being released, and I was just like, Christ, thank you for taking me back. Despite everything, thank you. And funny enough, this was when I felt that nudge again, just saying, welcome home, son. And interestingly, at that same time, my mom had also put her hand on my back, just giving me a little pat, letting me know I'm loved. And that was the moment I really came back to the faith. Interestingly, I didn't know this until later, but you're not supposed to receive communion unless you're in the state of grace. But strangely, I was. A week prior to that, I actually did go confess and was in a state of grace. I had no idea, but that was just like, oh, interesting. The crazier thing, all these pivotal moments that I mentioned, May 2020, renunciation of Christ. May 2023, I come back to Christ. May 2024, I receive Christ in His fullness in the Eucharist, believing in the fullness of His truth in the Catholic Church. All in the month of May. Now, interestingly, I also found out that whole month is dedicated to our Blessed Mother. That's when I realized Mary never stopped praying for me, pulling me back to her Son. A priest once said, how blessed are we that we have a mother. Indeed. So, with that being said, why does any of this matter to you? Why should it matter? This is what happens when you receive poor catechesis in your life. This is what happens when God is not the center of your life. This is what happens when you aren't given proper guidance, because then you end up confused. You have an identity crisis, you have a weak constitution, and you're easily swayed. You go everywhere. And that could have been avoided if I had just been taught properly. Because the magisterium of the Catholic Church is also one of its greatest gifts. These truths that I was struggling with, I got those answers fairly quickly. My Protestant era wasn't as long as it would have been because of this Bible study filled with such intelligent people whom helped bring me back and give me the answers I was searching for. And so with God being the center of your life, you have direction. You know who you are. You're not in as much pain. Because trust me, there's a lot of things that I went through, but probably the worst was not knowing who I was. Being confused about who I was. And thankfully, this faith centers you. It really is the rock that Christ promised. Christ is my rock. Christ is our rock. And he gives that to us with this, the beauty of this faith. And thanks be to God, I can smile and laugh. Although it came at a great cost, but I thank him every day for the blessings that I've received, to know the many people that are here and some I've yet to meet, whom I hope to meet after we're done here. And I'm just like, wow, I'm truly blessed. And I just wish that my younger self could have known this. And I hope that you all can get that from here today as well. Embrace the Lord tightly. Seek him in the scriptures and obtain guidance within the church so that you may become closer to our King, our God, the Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ, the Alpha and the Omega, my everything, my best friend.